Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, gamer boys and girls, welcome back to the pod. I hope you had a great summer, collected some great memories and enjoyed the sun. I know I did. It is time for my favorite seasons, autumn and winter is coming, and here's a new bundle at hand. As usual, we spent at least 3 hours with each game and made some sweet reviews for you, so you will have some ideas what to pick from this bundle. So sit back, relax, get a drink and enjoy the reviews.
Framed was a complete surprise for me. While I wasn't exactly sure what to expect, if I would have had to guess, I'd probably have gone with maybe a Papers, Please-esque title. In reality, however, it has absolutely nothing to do with that game. Instead, it is a unique and really fun, albeit short puzzle game. Simply put, you will essentially reorder frames of comic panels that will then come to life in front of your eyes. The one thing you'll always have set is an opening frame, the protagonist of the story entering the events of given page. Further to that, you can have anywhere from 2 to 8 other frames, possibly a few of them non-interactable. Your job is to order them in a specific way that allows said protagonist to maneuver their way through safely without falling, being eaten, or getting caught by the cops. While starting out, you'll only be able to reorder the frames. Later on, additional mechanics are introduced, such as frames that can be rotated or even used multiple times. Visuals are sweet, spicing up that sexy comic book aesthetic with some noir touches, and this is further supported by the music and the sounds. Admittedly though, the latter does get old sooner rather than later, as it tends to sound somewhat samey throughout. Puzzle difficulty is spot on. While there are a handful of tougher cookies in the jar, these are usually well spaced. In between, you'll find a mix of easier pages for relaxation. And even though the first episode has some difficulties explaining how puzzle mechanics work, worst case scenario, trial and error can get you through practically everything. I simply can't close this off without mentioning how big a pile of bullshit I find naming a pair of games with a collective playtime under 3 hours a collection, but that aside, I 100% recommend you give Framed a chance to have a short but fun puzzling session. And if it turns out you enjoyed it, maybe you'd also like to check out the Pedestrian, which is in many ways a very similar experience. You can check our review of it following the link below or the card on screen.
Atomicrops. Atomicrops is a roguelike farming experiment, a genre that has always attracted hardcore gamers with its permadeath mechanics and thanks to the procedurality of its maps. A game by Bird's Games, published by Röki, mixes the roguelite together with a gameplay that winks at farming simulators and tower defense. The premises are simple and convincing. In a post-apocalyptic world where rabbits carry plasma guns and hills literally have eyes, a girl, but later you can use other characters, inherits a very small piece of land from her grandfather. I'm looking at you, Stardew Valley. And thanks to the land, she will support her village, inhabited by mutant vegetables, and try to survive the passing of seasons and years. The farm will grow, but over time the threats and who knows, friendships will also increase. Atomicrops does not catapult our character into deadly dungeons. The lands where we will make our expeditions are flat, open spaces of different biomes. They are vast areas with camps and nests that if defeated will release objects of various kinds. Keys, upgrades, economic resources, or seeds. At the heart of it all, our form. In other words, the map is built in such a way that it revolves around the terrain that we will have to upgrade, cultivate and protect. Every 3 days, equivalent to a single expedition, we will have bonuses depending on our results, and also the season will change. Consequently, the characteristics of the places and enemies that surround us will also change. There are 3 stages of the game. First, the daylight. Lasts about 2 minutes. It consists of searching for resources and caring for the land. We will have to choose wisely whether to ignore harvest in favor of exploration or vice versa. The second phase is the night. It is made up of invasions and waves of mobs. It is a delicate and hectic moment, in which we will be surrounded by every front, and investing in turrets can help us survive. The monsters are using many methods: alternating bombs, spherical bullets, precision shots from a distance, or melee charges. The third and last phase, the hub, in which we'll be able to buy timber to build bridges and open new areas of the wastelands, obtain power-ups that can speed up our farm life, or unlock new object slots and firearms with different ranges and fire rates. On the farming component, it is appropriate to say a few words separately. Cultivating land is done by alternating multiple commands and multiple actions. First you hoe and plant, one tile at a time. Then it comes to fertilizing, finally it is watering time. A system that perhaps separated from the exploration phase would have been much more fun. In this way, it is a psychological ballast, a tower defense one, guilty of causing the exploration to become problematic. A good idea would have been to manage the cultivation in the hub phase, to relegate only the defense to the action phase. It is clear, considering that we are talking about a roguelite in which time has its weight, that it is certainly not an easy game. The game tends to turn into a classical bullet hell, where the player easily can get into the crossfire, and this way the game kind of forces you to use healing items and crops. The graphics are of excellent impact and quality. A clear pixel art, with colors that give hyper-saturated details and chromatically desaturated backgrounds. The main criticism of the game lies in certain less fluid scenario transitions, especially in the first post-tutorial moments. The farming simulator component, as already mentioned before, does not have a perfect synergy with the roguelite one. Combining genres doesn't necessarily mean a great mix, and sadly, in here it shows a bit. However, I give credit for trying. In conclusion, Atomicrops is a weird and wacky one, but some may find it appealing. Heavensvault. Heavensvault is a narrative-based puzzle game about discovering the past. You'll play as an archaeologist who is tasked to find a missing person, but along the way you will bump into more and more mysteries awaiting to be untangled. Obviously, the case of the missing person is one of these mysteries, and while it started out as average, as you can imagine, 3 hours down the road I can safely say it picked up the pace and actually started to tickle my fancy. There's always a tiny weeny string that seems to be loose, calling out for you to pull on it, and whenever you do, a whole cupboard of unknown textile end up crashing down on you. Another huge focus is on an unknown ancient language you have to decipher, and this part I found even more enjoyable than the previous. If you look close enough, you regularly bump into items of the past with engravings on them. You'll then need to think about the circumstances surrounding you, and the item, to attempt to come to a logical sounding translation. Found a long iron rod, with 2 words on it, in a room that might have been a living room thousands of years ago. Well, those words might just be poke stick, but maybe a more reasonable conclusion would be the words fire and poker. Whichever you end up placing your vote will be your interim translation, otherwise known as guess, until you come across the same characters again in a different text. If you can fit the same word you previously thought to be fire into a new sentence in a way that the new sentence also makes sense, you're likely to get a confirmation on your translation, and moving forward you'll have that much of an easier chance translating the next segment with the word for fire. Otherwise, you'll be told your first translation attempt doesn't seem to hold firm, and you need to rethink. Hell, maybe it was indeed Pokestick after all. I know this sounds a bit convoluted, but it is such a unique experience. I really had fun with this part of the game. I certainly didn't enjoy the visuals this much. Neither the combination of the 3D environment, full of lively colors, and the 2D characters roaming around it, with their livider color schemes, nor the completely unreasonable way their legs would turn into ectoplasm as they move, as if the dev team couldn't be bothered to animate walking. I'm also not sure why everyone in this galaxy seems to have a cold or heavy drinking problems. As for the sounds and the music, they both do their respective job, and there's nothing much to say about the voiceover you can come across once every blue moon. Ignoring the graphics, however, I think the main issue holding Heavensvault back from being a great title, how it is really slow, and it is often leads into a feeling of boredom between 2 puzzle parts or story sections. If you feel like you can weather this issue, however, you'll find something surprisingly unique beneath the surface, and might end up having a great time with this title. Forttriumph. Have you ever heard of Heroes and Might and Magic? Yes? No? Well, all the more reason to try this out. Forttriumph is a turn-based squad tactics game, where you will lead a band of heroes with different skill sets through a witty parody fantasy plot. Missions with various objectives are waiting for you on tiled procedural maps. Whether in story mode or skirmish, prepare yourself for a grand adventure. The game combines the strategic map of Heroes and Might and Magic with turn-based combat reminiscent of the tactical part of XCOM. The combat feels excellent, with the characters having moves making them play meaningfully. Direct damage moves tend to hit harder, but the real charm of the game is using the physics engine to push one thing into another or make a column fall into an enemy. Luckily, bosses don't just ignore the game's key mechanic either, they will use these mechanics as well, so you have to figure out ways to finish them. Each turn feels like a meaningful decision making. Do I use buffs and move, do damage to the enemy, or position myself in a way that the enemy will have to move to a different route that is potentially a threat to him? The character system is also great. Each character has a few skills, and on level up you can choose between upgrading these skills or adding new ones. Every skill felt like it had a part to play, although some were more useful than others. Having skills that are all useful and don't eclipse each other is tough, but the devs somehow managed to do it. The strategy layer is alright. It isn't as great as it was in Heroes and Might and Magic, but it gets the job done. The story is very generic, but at least sometimes it's funny, so this definitely adds to it. Our heroes that are trying to save the world against the big bad guy. That's it in a nutshell, so in a way the story falls a bit short. There's base building in this game as well, but sadly it isn't as complex like in Heroes and Might and Magic, and generally I felt I could win the game without it. All in all, Forttriumph is a decent one in the turn-based genre. So if you like the art style and you want to try something that's not Heroes and Might and Magic, give it a try. Not for broadcast is another entry in the slowly but steadily increasing genre I like to refer as to dystopian job simulator. If you're familiar with Papers, Please, or Not Tonight, that was part of the January 21 Humble Choice, you'll have no issues understanding what this title is all about. In Not For Broadcast, you play the role as a family man, married, 2 kids. Your new job is supervising the news broadcast, deciding which of the camera angles are to go live, what cutscenes or ads are to be shown, and when exactly. To this end, you'll spend most of your game time looking at the interior of your editing station, making second-by-second executive decisions. And I do mean second by second. There are so many things you'll need to juggle for the sake of perfection that it can easily become challenging. Which of the 4 cameras should you stream? Obviously the one pointed at the person talking. Except, the audience gets bored if they look at the same thing for too long, but also dislike frequent change or not seeing who's talking. Naked people, protesters, you don't really want to show them either. A debate getting heated? Better prepare your censor finger as cursing isn't allowed to air either. Or certain phrases that are to be censored later on. You'll also be tortured by interference and power issues, and so on and so forth. Between 2 sessions of work, you'll have to make the occasional decision on how to handle issues rising in your private life. Do you help your brother-in-law escape the oppression by breaking the law? Do you pay for your daughter's trip around Europe while you have practically no money to your name? Whatever decision you make will likely to come back and bite you down in the line, in one way or another either way. Now the most obvious distinction between broadcast and the other mentioned title is presentation. Whereas Papers or Tonight presented themselves in pixel art fashion, broadcast is almost entirely presented as FMV, full motion video. Everything you can broadcast on air is pre-recorded and at a quite high standard even. Story and humor is up to one's taste, obviously, but I don't think there's a question whether the actors and the actresses did a good job with the scenes. Broadcast is not a game for everyone. It gets hectic, many would likely find it stressful, but if you find the concept of having to attempt to pay attention to 200 things at the same time and juggle them all to perfection, you'll likely get your money's worth from Not For Broadcast. Narita Boy. Narita Boy is a tribute to the 80s in substance and aesthetics. A title that evokes the essence of Tron, but gives her the multicolored dress of Ready Player One. I know, not everyone is as passionate about pixel art as I am, but the graphic design of Studio Scoba's title is strong with an avalanche of details, animation and suggestions that give depth and variety to a two-dimensional digital world that is full of details of different creatures and tiny pixels placed exactly where they should be. Narita Boy could be called a Metroidvania, but we are talking about a title divided into levels and combat sequences that mixes adventure, platforming and two-dimensional action. Some areas offer a certain amount of exploration, also functional as the adventure component, full of details and even some secrets. The gameplay of Narita Boy starts from the jump and a sequence of basic attacks which are ready rather early in the game. A distance hit, a couple of attacks that consume a resource that recharges in time. Then the sledgehammer blow, that is not the most comfortable to use, but hits a big one. The second one is a huge laser capable of inflicting massive damage that is vital to use when the number of enemies is overwhelming. And that is just the beginning of a collection of powers, largely tied to a responsive, spectacular and increasingly diverse combat system. With the new moves, new threats will arrive. That will force us to change our gameplay in terms of movement, attacks and even defenses. There are flying enemies, huge creatures, exploding enemies, impromptu fights with special enemies that will only appear once, enemies that shoot, enemies that charge, medieval skeletons with shields, and huge barded knights. Each requires a different approach. Once you understand the monster sequences and boss attack patterns, things will almost always get pretty straightforward, and Narita Boy isn't a punishing title. Dying is not that difficult when it comes to a fight with low health, but your life will fully regenerate when the save is loaded. The story is that of a classic hero who enters an enchanted world and must defeat the villain on the duty, but the enchanted world in here is a simulation created by a legendary programmer whose story is told through references, allegories and 12 flashbacks that will mark the number of chapters of Narita Boy. Finally, I have to mention the amazing soundtrack, accompanied by effects of equal quality, which gives us jazz curtains in the bars, a western piece to emphasize the ride in the desert, epic excerpts to accompany the fight sequences, and a couple of memorable synthwave pieces that are destined to end up directly on the smartphone to listen to them endlessly. My only problem with the game that it has a tad bit too much fetch quests, and I would have really loved a minimap to find my ways easier. So if you like pixel art as much as I do, and you really dig the 80s nostalgia, give it a try.
Now, if I said earlier that I was surprised by Framed, I probably have to rate my experience with PGA Tour 2K21 mildly shocking. Safe to say, I went into this with less than low expectations. Am I a big sports game fan? No. Am I the least bit interested in golf? Hell no. Have I ever super enjoyed a golf game? Still no. This obviously left little room for excitement looking at PGA as a main title this month. Nonetheless, someone had to pick it up, so I had to suck it up and get in. Having survived the wall of license agreement, avoiding a registry form and getting through a tutorial that was good enough to get me to learn the basics, even if it was full of terms I had no chance to remember and implement later on, honestly, I still wasn't impressed. This wasn't helped much by the customizations being locked behind some kind of currency either, but I figured fuck it, let's play. And you know what? I actually didn't mind my time. While graphics are not the most amazing thing ever, they're also not garbage. The run-of-the-mill sports game music is only present in the menus, so that didn't bother me either. Instead, on the course, there's only the metallic clank of you hitting the golf ball, the thud of said ball landing on the ground after 200 odd meters of flight, and the crowd cheering for you. Also, there are the commentators, who seem to make sense to my uninitiated ears, thus that's a plus in my book as well. Gameplay I also found satisfying so far. The usual obstacles of wind strength and direction, elevation and terrain properties are well indicated, so you probably won't be surprised about why your shot flew the way it did. The swings are actually handled in a way that's new to me, instead of the well-known concept of hit a button, watch a meter charge up and down, then hit again when preferred. You'll have to pull back and push forward on your trigger or mouse, imitating the actual swing of a golf club. The speed and accuracy of doing so will be what determines the success of your shot, and personally, I found it fairly fun to try and compensate for my tendency to push back slightly to the right by aiming my shots slightly to the left. In the end, I somehow sank into the relaxing rhythm of the core loop and stayed over the 3 hours mark before I noticed, and at that point I haven't even checked out the online scene. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if I was missing much. While I still attempted to try find an online game, in 30 odd minutes I absolutely had no luck doing so. I did, however, come across these so-called societies that seem to be competitive leagues played in a single-player format where you would have a set date and time range to get your round in, and then scores would be compared to others. Many of these societies actually seem to be up and running, even as of now, so that's good news. And that's practically everything there is to PGA Tour 2K21 really. Is it gonna be the game of your life? Unlikely. Is it, however, the most enjoyable golf or mini-golf game I've played to date? Yes, it is. And I really don't see any reason not to boot it up every now and then for either a few relaxing solo rounds or to play a few games for shits and giggles with friends.
Neon Abyss. Adrenaline frenzy and an impressive amount of weapons. This is what Neon Abyss is all about. In recent years, roguelikes and roguelites are becoming more accessible and less punitive and have proliferated in large quantities, also thanks to the indie productions that are more inspired and free to experiment with the genre. Developed by Chinese team Vivo Games together with the support of Team 17, Neon Abyss falls into the subgenre of roguelite, however adds a ton of action and synthwave on top of it. In the universe of Neon Abyss, the deities have been annihilated by other divine beings, taken from the images of monstrous representations of today's consumerism, television, fast food, beauty commercials, and world-class sports. Elements of great attraction to the human beings, which they are totally addicted to. Following this divine generational change, only Hades was saved and asked for our help to restore the order of things. In fact, he holed up as a manager of a bar, the last glimmer of hope for mankind. At the back, an abyss where we can dive in and face the treacherous rooms that will lead us to defeat the enemies. During our first couple of minutes, the game teaches us how to jump, shoot, dodge, and the basic rules of the game. After that, we are free to go. A few life points, no game advantage, and a basic firearm. This will be our start. The game feels like a twin-stick shooter, although plays as a roguelite. We will have to make our way through the countless rooms and taking advantage of our skills in combat. The treasures to be found will be various kinds: money, keys, and crystals, all game currencies to be spent during this game. The direct upgrade of the dungeons from the bar, the central hub of the game, will increase the possibility of finding secret rooms full of treasures and drops necessary for our advance. Like any self-respecting title of this genre, the freedom of action is varied. We can throw ourselves headlong into the exploration of all the maps of the dungeon, defeat the mid-bosses, and then face the divinity at the end of the abyss, or ignore the part of the exploration and just rush for the final confrontation. If you have ever played Dead Cells, you know what the game is like. Full throttle action, dodging bullets like in Fury, paired with a great soundtrack. Although I did enjoy this game, there is a massive shortfall to it. The excessive amount of everything. Companions, weapons, upgrades, tools. Less is more, as they say. And for me, at least in here, the saying is true. There are too many things to remember and too many variations to handle. Also for me it wasn't as ruthless as I like my roguelites to be. But all in all, it's a safe pick for everyone, so if you feel like it, go for it.
Ah, Röki. So cute, so fun. Essentially a point-and-click adventure where there's actually no pointing, just the clicking. You'll follow the tale of Tove and Lars When the younger sibling gets abducted, thank God, as he's an annoying little shit. Obviously, we don't all agree on this, so his sister attempts to do anything she can to save him from the clutches of, well, a big portion of Norse mythology. Now, as weird as it might have sounded at the beginning, there's indeed no cursor to move around and try to interact with things. To do so, you'll have to walk up to different items or elements of the environment where an interaction trigger will pop up, and you can set things in motion. You still have your inventory, which slowly but surely fills up with all the garbage you collect, in hopes of sooner or later finding use for them, and yes, you always will. And unfortunately, Röki also carries on the age-old point-and-click issue of intended way or no way at all, but at the very least, with this whole no-cursor approach, the pixel hunting issues are more or less gone from my experience. Oh, and I guess that's also due to the fact that you can at any time highlight all the interactables freely. Anywho, the story so far has been a delight, with interesting characters, and while there is the occasional brain teaser, during the first 3 hours, nothing unsolvable. Roughest, so far, probably was when in my head I mixed up the ingredients required for 2 different recipes, not realizing I could already progress with one of them. I do enjoy most of the presentation as well. As for the graphics, I like the choice of color, the simplistic yet easy to read art style, and the cute animation of snow getting roughed up behind you as you run around. I also like most of the characters encountered on the journey, probably least fond of the actual human characters so far. And maybe the parallax effect of the foreground could have been toned down a bit. It is admittedly a wee bit overdone. Music and the environmental sounds are perfectly fine, but this game made me realize how annoyed I am with this design choice of replacing voiceover with moans, grunts and single words. I mean, I already knew it pissed me off more often than not, but now I know for sure I just hate it. Nothing to take me more out of my immersion than the subtitles of a dialogue suddenly popping up on the screen, followed by these completely out of place moans or single words replacing entire sentences. Please stop doing this. If you can't afford to pay voice actors, it's all fine. Just add a faint typing sound to when your subtitles roll on screen and you're good to go. This, however, I want to stress, is not a Röki specific issue, and if I ignore this, I really struggle trying to find any faults so far, and I'm definitely going back in to see it through.
Orwell, Ignorance is Strength. This game is a sequel to Orwell, a game from 2016 that let us work for the Big Brother. The second, darker season. With the power to both uncover and play with the truth, we must decide for ourselves how far we will go in the service of our country and whether the truth is sacred or ignorance is strength. We are still in the pseudo-country, the nation, which is a combination of the United Kingdom and the United States, which is ruled by the democratically elected party, named the Party, which introduces measures against terrorism to make the crime rates drop in the country. In the same time, it is intervening militarily in the neighboring country of Parges, which is strongly reminiscent of Yugoslavia during its disintegration, in order to bring stability and support to its democratically elected leader. The time these events take place is parallel to the events of the first game, the days after April 13, and our role is that of a CIA-sponsored staff member of the office. As in the last game, we have all the authority to access the accounts, mobile phones and chats of the suspects through backdoors, so we can build their files and proceed with the case after submitting data chunks to our link. The reason for our existence is to serve a code of ethics. The differences found in this title initially have to do with the subject matter, as we move a little to the neighboring country of Parges and its history. At least in terms of references, although we remain in the nation. In the terms of gameplay there are some changes, with the main one being that time is going forward for each data submission we do, and the time is more of the essence in here. This way we can better manipulate the construction of the narrative, depending on the events that take place at a given time. For example, we may know that this incendiary article will be published at 6 in the afternoon. We can either prevent it, or let it happen by moving things around, so that it is published despite our best efforts. Another addition of the new influencer tool, which can turn a given narrative into another, using social media, utilizing the trolls dear to all of us, and the trick of false information and misinformation they cause. Ignorance's strength does well in terms of subject matter and criticism. It perfectly captures the evolution of the internet from 2005 to the present day, with the evolution of forums and bulletins and trolls and influencers. Another thing that succeeds very well is how the devs put the player in the position of a judge. While we ourselves see the particularly horrible Orwell system from the inside, we enter the process of judging the morals and actions of unsuspecting citizens coming under our lens. We create sympathies and operate not on the basis of legitimacy, but on the basis of personal ethics. Where this continuity falters is its duration. There are 3 episodes, not 5 like in the previous game, and this short time isn't enough for the story to unfold sufficiently, and for there to be a greater emotional investment in the heroes. Also, as it is impossible not to compare with the previous part, the characters seem less inspired and shallower than those of the previous chapter, and dialogues, although of good quality, do not reach the previous ones. In conclusion, Orwell, Ignorance's Strength, continues a good tradition. However, it does not reach the writing quality of the first title, and much shorter than the first one. So if you like the first one, you should pick this one. If you didn't, play that one first, and maybe choose this one after that.
From the developers of Graveyard Keeper, Swag and Sorcery is... well... I don't even know what the hell this is supposed to be. A time sink, maybe? A mobile game accidentally released on PC? It certainly feels like one of those messes, published on Google Play or the App Store, just for you to have something to click away at while sitting on the loo. You're tasked with managing a company of fantasy heroes in order to save the world from some uninteresting event. I'm not even entirely sure what that's all about, as the story was presented in such a poor way by cringeworthy characters that I completely just blocked it out. To do so, you'll send your adventurers out into these different biomes where they'll just auto-battle their way through, hopefully surviving and bringing back loot which you can then spend on the infrastructure of your town, or buying equipment, or training for the party. Between quest runs, you can heal your guys in the church for money, or you can just sit around staring at their health bar until it fills back up. And this isn't even the only sitting around part. Crafting works just the same. You'll have to queue up items to craft and wait until the timer depletes. If this doesn't scream mobile garbage to you, I'm not sure what does really. My only surprise was that looking at these timers, I didn't come across a pop-up that said 1 day 6 hours remaining, but if I buy premium currency I can speed it up. Furthermore, 30 minutes into the game, I was already forced to farm the same shit over and over again, hoping I would get lucky with the random resource drops this time around. There's also some kind of costume contest where you can send your heroes to be judged by their looks, and can spend all your money on bribes to win back some resources and fame. In practice, it's just as exciting to play as it sounds. Sound work is acceptable, music is okay, and admittedly, the actual pixel art is beautiful. Pity, it's often blocked out and let down by the interface, which once again feels like it was designed for touchscreens. There's really nothing more to be said about Swag and Sorcery. It's a boring mashup of incomplete ideas without any strong core gameplay concept that would keep you going. Mostly due to how it doesn't even feel like you're playing a game most of the time, but rather watching things happen on the screen. On the other hand, if auto-battling, character and world building is something you'd be interested in, I'd recommend you take a look at Loop Hero. While not perfect, that title is light years better than this mess. If curious, you'll find a link to our review on that title in the description, or you can just click on the card on the screen.
West of the Dead. West of the Dead, a roguelike twin-stick shooter that will catapult you into the hellish world of the dead. Our adventure begins by making the acquaintance of a charismatic mysterious protagonist, William Mason, a gunfighter, with vague reminiscences of Ghost Rider. Died in unknown circumstances, wakes up in purgatory. He remembers almost nothing of his past, or how he met death. The only vague memory depicts a preacher, an ambiguous and dangerous figure, who gives a lot of trouble to the damned souls. The realm of the dead does not appear in its most common Dante reference, nor in any other fantasy representation we have been accustomed to. We will find ourselves in the hellish Wild West, haunted by bandits, by sin, and above all, guns. Many, many guns. Our journey begins inside a saloon, a place where every lost soul awakens and is greeted by a friendly barman. The route continues and unfolds in dark underground tunnels, swamps, up to the mountains, into the dusty towns. A few steps inside the cinematic panorama, and we immediately understand the mechanics that characterize this place. Each path, in fact, is procedurally generated for each run of the game. And we start in full roguelike style. Objects, enemies and alleys are arranged randomly and will never be in the exact same pattern. With each death, we will lose everything we have acquired, be it skills or arsenal itself. The key and winning point of this repetitive circle is the gameplay, a perfect mix between shooter and action elements. The view is mainly isometric and zooms in or zooms out according to the size of the surrounding environment. Our protagonist has two weapon slots available, for the most part a rifle and a revolver. However, there will be also special items capable of enhancing his melee attacks, granting them a quicker reload, etc. In addition, he will have an agile somersault that will allow him to avoid enemy gunshots. The armed clashes, in fact, will be on the razor's edge, with a pressing and frenetic pace. Typical of the Far West raids. Inside each room, larger spaces between one gallery and another, we will find enemies and useful objects, always arranged randomly. In addition, we will have the opportunity to take cover behind crates, which are essential during the most heated fights, also given the fragile health of Mason. West of Dead is an interesting discovery. An independent title that shows all its grit and its value. The roguelike elements make it extremely versatile, capable of extending the gameplay experience without becoming tedious or boring. Again, just like in Neon Abyss, my problem is that this isn't as hard as I like it to be, and also I had issues with the controls. Don't fret, nothing game breaking, it's just sometimes a bit iffy. So if you like the western feel, and you like shooting, you might want to give this one a try.
Dead. Again. It looked like dying weren't gonna take just yet.
Back at it again, just like 2 months ago, this time around, we once again see a boatload of mediocre titles. We could also hear my voiceover being worse than usual, apologies for that, I'm sick as a dog currently. Also, thanks Golly for taking over a pair of videos. Based on our experience, top entries of this package were Framed, Röki, and surprisingly PGA Tour, latter likely speaks of the overall quality. Swag and Sorcery, for being the atrocious thing it is our solo contestant this time for the bottom tier, everything else is having a blast of a time in midfield. This sums up to a total 26 points out of the maximum 36, closing a heavily average month. As always, we'd be very grateful if you pleased the machine gods by liking our video. If you'd like to come along for next month's ride, don't hesitate to subscribe. Any and all recommendations are welcome in the comment section, and we'll see you again next month.